You were sitting in a waiting room last Tuesday, just a standard checkup. Nothing unusual. And you watched an older man try to remember his own phone number for the receptionist and he laughed it off, but everyone did, but you saw the look in his eyes. It wasn't forgetful. It was terrified. Boom. I went home that evening and I was making pasta, just pasta, Tuesday night, nothing going on. And the thing I'd been circling since that waiting room just landed. That terror didn't have to be inevitable. I turned the stove off, opened my laptop and spent the next several hours going through neurology research from 2025 and 2026 that most people will never read because most people are still waiting for a symptom before they start asking the question. If you've been told that losing your edge is just part of getting older, you've been given a version of the truth that is designed to make you a passive passenger in your own decline. What's actually happening is something the medical establishment has been slow to say plainly. Your brain is being starved. Before I give you the habit of it, and I will specifically with the mechanism behind it, I need you to understand something first. There's a concept called the Overton window. It's the range of ideas a society considers acceptable at a given moment. 10 years ago, the Overton window for dementia was narrow. Wait for symptoms, then take a pill. That was the entire conversation. Today that window has shifted. And what's sitting just inside the new edge of it, what researchers are now willing to say in peer-reviewed language, is that cognitive decline is not a lightning strike. It's a slow structural failure. Like a house where nobody cleared the gutters for 20 years. You don't wait for the roof to collapse to wonder if you should have been doing maintenance. Brain health is structural maintenance. But here's what the mainstream conversation still won't name directly. The villain isn't age. The villain is cognitive comfort. We live in a world that has been engineered, deliberately, profitably, to make sure you never have to struggle to remember anything. Your phone remembers the route. Your computer remembers the password. Your calendar remembers the appointment. We have outsourced the very effort that keeps neurons firing. And the brain, which is brutally efficient with our brains, responds to lack of demand the way any system does. It scales back. It prunes. It stops maintaining the infrastructure nobody's using. If you felt that specific fog, that paralysis where you walk into a room and genuinely cannot remember why you're there, that is not your brain failing. That is your brain responding rationally to the lack of demand you've been placing on it. There's a difference. And that difference is everything. I'll be honest. I have a take on this, and I want to say it plainly before I go further. I think we have become so obsessed with saving time that we are accidentally discarding our memories to do it. And the medical establishment has overcomplicated brain health to the point where people feel helpless. And that helplessness is convenient for anyone selling a supplement or a pharmaceutical. The truth is that cognitive resilience is built through specific, uncomfortable mental effort that costs $0. That's where I'm standing. You can disagree with me in the comments. I'd rather be uncomfortably right than comfortable and wrong about this. Here is the habit. It's called micromapping. It takes 6 minutes. It costs nothing. It requires a blank piece of paper and a pen. And if you're half listening to this while doing something else, I need you to actually look at the screen for this next part, because this is the piece that makes everything else I've said make sense. Most people assume the answer to brain health is brain games, crosswords, Sudoku, apps that make you feel productive about your cognition. Here's the problem with that. Those teach you how to do crosswords. They don't build cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve is the brain's actual buffer against decline, the surplus of neural connections that allows your brain to reroute around damage and keep functioning. It's built through novel, effortful, spatially demanding mental work. And crosswords, once you know how to do them, stop being novel. They become comfortable. Comfort is the enemy. Micromapping is different. Every evening before dinner, take a blank piece of paper. Draw from memory the exact path you took today, not a map of your city, not a diagram, a personal record of what you actually moved through. I walked out the front door. I turned left past the neighbour's red Toyota. I noticed the oak tree that's losing its leaves early this year. I turned right at the pharmacy. The pharmacist was wearing a blue jacket. You were forcing your hippocampus, the brain's primary memory and navigation structure, to re-render your own reality, to pull from encoding rather than retrieval, to do the work that GPS has been quietly doing for you. I remember sitting at my kitchen table at about 6 a.m. last Wednesday. Blank page in front of me, trying to map the previous day, and I realised I couldn't remember the colour of the front door of the house I'd visited the afternoon before. I actually said it out loud to no one. I went there, I stood in front of that door, and I cannot tell you what colour it is. And that was the moment I understood what the research was actually pointing at. If I don't demand that my brain record the world, it stops recording. Not because it's broken, because I stopped asking. Now, here's the pushback I'd expect. I can already see the comment someone is typing right now. But my memory problems are genetic. My mother had Alzheimer's. This isn't going to help me. I thought the same thing. And I want to be honest here rather than dismissive, because this is where I want to be precise. There are genetic factors in dementia risk that I am not qualified to dismiss and would not try to. Neurology is genuinely complex. Drawing a map is not a magic spell, and I won't tell you otherwise. But here's what the research on survivorship bias in brain studies consistently shows. We spend almost all of our time studying the brains that failed. We almost never look at the 90-year-olds who are still sharp. When researchers do look at them, and some have, what emerges is not a story about genetics, it's a story about active navigation, about people who are still inside their own lives rather than just passing through them. The people who stayed sharp were the ones who kept demanding something of themselves. Let me slow down here, because this next part is the reason the whole video exists. When you do micro-mapping, you are activating neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to physically reorganize itself in response to demand. You are sending a signal. This information matters. Keep the lights on in this sector. And the reason this matters specifically for people over 60 is that the brain becomes highly efficient with age. Efficient means ruthless. If the spatial reasoning centers aren't being used, the brain prunes them to redirect energy elsewhere. It's not malice, it's optimization. Micro-mapping overrides that optimization. And here is the part I want you to sit with. And I don't know where you're watching this. Maybe it's late. Maybe you've got something else you should be doing. But if you've made it this far, I think you already know this matters. The frustration of trying to learn something new and feeling like it won't stick. That's real. That's the brain resisting the unfamiliar. But micro-mapping asks you to learn nothing new. It asks you to reclaim what you already experienced. That's a fundamentally different demand. And the brain responds to it differently. ADD. I've spent the last 3 months going through the data on hippocampal volume in adults over 60. Not the top 10 tips articles, the actual longitudinal studies. The ones that track the same people over years and look at what separates the ones who maintain function from the ones who don't. The seniors with the highest cognitive retention aren't doing Sudoku. They are navigating their own lives without digital assistance. They are still demanding that their brain do the work of being in the world. This channel isn't for people who want the comfortable version of health. It's for people who'd rather be uncomfortably right than comfortably wrong. If that's you, you're in the right place. I almost wish I hadn't found the data on GPS usage and hippocampal shrinkage. Because once you understand that your convenience is functioning as a slow tax on your memory, you can't go back to using your phone for navigation without knowing what you're trading. You're stuck with that now. Just like I am. Save this video. Because the next time someone tells you that cognitive decline is inevitable and there's nothing to be done without a prescription, You'll have something specific and grounded to push back with. Here's the thing that most people miss entirely. And it's the reason I kept coming back to this research, even when I was ready to move on. The map doesn't have to be accurate. The benefit doesn't come from the drawing. It comes from the search. It's the moment of trying to remember the colour of the neighbour's car, even if you get it wrong. That moment of effortful retrieval is when the brain grows. The struggle is the medicine. The inaccuracy is irrelevant. The reaching is everything. So share this with the person in your life you've watched leaning too heavily on their phone for everything. The one who used to know every route and now can't leave the driveway without GPS. You're not being a nag. You're helping them keep the house standing. And there's a layer beneath this that this video can't fully address, the relationship between active navigation, cortisol regulation, and late-life cognitive function. That's its own conversation. It's on this channel. Watch it next if you want to understand why the habit works at a hormonal level, not just a structural one. So, tonight, at the kitchen table, don't reach for the remote. Reach for a pen. Map your day. Because if you don't show your brain that the world is worth remembering, eventually, it will agree with you. Which part of your daily routine do you realise you've been running on autopilot for years? Tell me in the comments. I want to know the one thing you're going to start mapping tomorrow.